And welcome back to my channel, the Track Nerd channel. We are beginning the outdoor season. It was a bit of a slow week one, as predicted, but we did have some good marks. But I do want to welcome you to the outdoor season. Warmer weather, more eyes focused on the sport. I hope that this is a really good outdoor season, and I expect it to be because it is an Olympic year. And in my 37 years of existence, every Olympic year for every level of track and field, it seems that everyone universally steps their game up that much harder, and the marks just are that much greater, and the competition is that much stronger. And after the indoor season that we had, I think we're all kind of expecting for that to be the case again this coming year. But in this normal format, the four leg format that we have, there still will be four legs today. And so, our first leg, we're going to talk about week one lessons. Our second leg, we'll talk about the top men performances. Our third leg, we'll talk about the top women performances. And our anchor today is what is expected of this year and some things to come. I do want to also mention there will be an outdoor preview. I know we just had our first week, but one of the reasons for the slow preview or release of the previews, because I'm going to split them up, have a women's preview and have a men's preview. One of the primary reasons is that I want to see if there are any athletes that are going to turn professional after the indoor season that we had, heading to the outdoor season, who may want to slow their training down or make some changes going into the Olympic trials of their country, um, just to be better prepared. Because we know that the college season for outdoors is very long. It's March all the way to June. So you're looking at 3 months. And then shortly after, many of those athletes are competing in Olympic trials. Will they have enough in the tank? Is the primary question. Another pressing issue is that I do want to apologize for noticing that I was like, no one wants to comment. And then I scrolled back and had a friend look, and he goes, it's locked. And I looked through all of my videos, and I discovered if I select it's for kids, because I want this to be accessible to everyone, which is what I thought I was doing, it turns out that it blocks everyone from commenting. So I apologize now. I was not ignoring anyone, not trying to get your feedback. As I end every video, I do want your feedback. So I want this to be a place for us to talk, discuss, and share ideas and thoughts. So please comment, whether positive or negative, it is going to be received. So let's get started with the preview, or excuse me, the recap. So, leg one, week one lessons. As stated, this is going to be a slow start. We saw a few times that are eye popping, and we'll talk about them today. A few marks that made us go, ooh, that's pretty good early. But overall, it was just slightly a bit quiet. There were still a lot of good performances because a lot of people competed, but not a lot of the bigger names, and that's okay. What do we expect for them to pick up? We know that the Texas relays, the Florida relays, and the Raleigh relays are all in one weekend. Shame on those schools. Why not break them up? Someone take a weekend, someone take another weekend. I remember back in 2022 when I went to my first Texas relays, the very next weekend was the Florida relays. The weekend prior to that was the Raleigh relays. And I think that's great. Why are we having these great relay carnivals all at the same time, taking eyes off our sport or spreading them? We don't have a super large audience as it is. So I really do hope that one day some of these coaches and some of these programs kind of move out of their own egos and learn to work and negotiate it with each other to try to help the sport out. Let's have a conversation in that realm. But that's what I will be doing. That's what I expect for things to pick up. And I will plan on to be doing a live preview on YouTube. That's the hope. I don't want to make it a nailed down thing, but the hope is to do sort of a preview prior to that weekend. We're going to focus on the Texas and the Florida relays and the Raleigh relays. Those are the three relay meets that we'll be discussing that weekend. There may be other things going on, like where I'm going to be at, and here in Georgia will be the Morehouse relays, but I will still have my phone and my laptop looking at everything. So it's going to be a busy weekend for a lot of us that weekend. And that's what I really expect for things to kind of pick up. The Texas relays back when I was younger in high school and college was kind of when the season really kind of kicked into full high gear. That's when everyone was competing. I mean, you did have, several relay meets before that, but the Texas relays was kind of the unofficial start. And no athlete has turned professional from the indoor championships yet. I'm still waiting. I want to see who it will be because there are several candidates. This was a great indoor championship meet. We had a lot of really eye popping performances. So I expect for there to potentially be one or two. Let's hold out hope that that doesn't happen because I would like for if they does happen for it to come out before I do the preview video. All right, so moving on to our second leg, our top men performances. There were a few eye popping performances. First, I want to give a hats off to Kalen Walker of Iowa. He's consistently been good. He has been the Big Ten king for quite a while, and he got things started this weekend with the 10:09 win legal in the 100-meter dash. That was a really strong time against a pretty solid field down there in Florida. He was at the USF Bulls Alumni Invitational in Tampa, and he, was the big winner over Clinton Munga of Kentucky, who ran a 10:18. So just hats off to him getting things started. That's a really good time this early in the season. So do we expect for Kalen Walker to give us a sub 10 performance? If he's running a 10:09 now and he's running a low 6.5, I think there's a 9.9 in those legs. So we'll see. Hopefully he can stay healthy, but I think he's probably the fastest Big Ten sprinter we've seen ever. And there have been a lot of great Big Ten sprinters, even though it gets a lot of negative flack because it's in the cold weather portion of the country. But Ohio State has, produced a lot of great sprinters, and I say that being someone from the state of Michigan, but hats off to them because they've historically just had a great sprint program. And we can't ignore what has happened in Illinois, what Purdue has done, and now we know USC and UCLA and Oregon will be joining the Big Ten, and they have a lot of speed. So the Big Ten, being the fastest in the Big Ten, is going to carry a little bit more weight moving forward. But hats off to Kalen Walker. What a great performance he had. And ironically, we'll stick in the sprints and we'll talk about young Jordan Ware, a freshman at Mississippi State by way of Tennessee. He's from the state of Tennessee, the Memphis area. His debut meet, 20.25. He's a long, thin sprinter, but he looks like he may have something here. Watch that race. He ran this at the Hurricane Invitational. This is a very talented young freshman who I think we're going to start hearing more from. I don't think this will be the first time I mention him. When I do the end of the year recap, if we take a look at some freshmen, I'm pretty sure his name is going to pop up. What a great time that is for that to be your outdoor debut as a freshman, a 20.25. And it was a comfortable race. I mean, he beat Matthew Hudson Smith, professional quarter miler, and he beat Godson Ojini Brume of LSU. I mean, he wasn't going up against slouches. He was beating some heavyweights and looked pretty solid doing it. So again, I don't think this will be the only time I mention him. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. He's a very talented young freshman. And moving into the relays, right here in my neck of the woods here in Atlanta, and I wish I had caught this race, but at the time I was parking. Auburn, 38.74 in the 4x1. They have a great group of sprinters, and who's surprised? It's Leroy Burrell as their coach. He did this previously at Houston, and now he's doing it at Auburn. So he clearly knows what he's doing with his sprinters. And they're all headed in the right direction here at Auburn. I don't even recall seeing someone run a time that fast this early. They end up breaking the meet record and the stadium record that was held by Florida State. It was 39 flat. That's not a slouch time. And again, that was Florida State and now owned by Auburn, and it's this early in the season. Is this a sub 38 team? I know that's saying a lot, but that's a very solid time early. And knowing Leroy Burrell, this is going to be a strong team at the end of the year. Just keep an eye out on Auburn. LSU was a little bit quiet indoors when it came to their 4x4. It wasn't their usual championship level 4x4, and I think they're going to make some changes outdoors, but they got things started right away at the Hurricane Invitational. A 3:03.5. That's a pretty solid time to start your outdoor season. I wrestled, is that? And I'm like, no, that is a good time. And for LSU, for a team that did not perform the way they wanted to indoors, I'm pretty sure. Sure, they had an All American quartet, but LSU normally is competing for the national title on the men's side in the 4x4. They're coached primarily by Benny Brazil, um, who does tend to handle the men's sprints. And he was a great, 400 hurdler, great, Olympian. He had a stint in the NFL with the Bengals. He's a phenomenal recruiter. That is very clear. And a great developer of talent. So I just felt that they didn't really live up to what they were capable of indoors. And for them to start the outdoor season with 303.5 is a really positive sign of things to come. I think they're going to right the ship. We're going to see them in the finals, probably come national championship times. They're going to be in it in the SECs. And LSU is always fun to watch. And I think that'll continue this season. Now, moving to the throwing events, and I want to highlight the throwers, not just on the men's side, but on the women's side when we talk on the women's performances in our third leg. The throwers had a pretty good weekend for this to be the start. And these weren't, non names. These were some names that, wait, you have a title to your name. You were a conference champion. You're a multi All American. Yeah. And they had no problem showing up and showing out. And we'll start with, ironically, someone that doesn't have any of that yet, but I think he will, and that's a freshman, Raquel Broderick of USC. Great discus thrower, 204 feet, 6 inches, or 62.34 meters. A great throw for the start of his career. He was a big signee out of high school. We were wondering what is, because USC has had some great throwers over the year, but we haven't seen, that big gun. And I think he is that big gun. And when I mean that big gun, I mean someone that is potentially going to win a national title. Unfortunately, out west, all the great throwers go between two schools. That's Arizona State and Arizona. And occasionally Oregon and, well, Cal is, I'll say, is one of them, but not as big as Arizona and Arizona State. We'll put Oregon, Cal, and USC sort of in that next group. It's good to see that USC has, someone with a future, especially when they're moving to the Big Ten. There's quite a few really good throwing programs. You got Nebraska, you got Ohio State, you have Michigan. Now you're going to be adding USC. So look forward to seeing what they produce with their throwers, especially this young man. And then we'll look at Parker Feuerborn of Southeast Missouri. 235 feet 1 inch or 71.65 meters. This is an All American thrower throwing a big mark already. I mean, I wasn't expecting for us to have a great mark like that and the hammer this early. And this is his senior year, so I think he's going to be in contention. Clearly, he's an All American, so he should be. But I think he'll be probably in legit contention come national championship time. I can't guarantee that he'll be mentioned on the preview, but he may. I think he's, looking for a close to his career in a very positive direction. And that is a great start. 235 feet 1 inch or a 71-meter throw this early. Got to give him his credit. Now, moving to our third leg, we'll look at the top women performances. There weren't as many that caught my attention, but there are some that I want to call. Tennessee, specifically in the relays, their 4x1 and their 4x4 had an incredible weekend. They had some really great marks against some pretty solid competition. And it almost seemed like, things are starting to come together for Coach Ross. Their 4x1 at the UCF Black and Gold Invite ran 43-45. Not super perfect handoffs, but I bet you come later in the season, this is going to be a team that's running mid 42. So they're going to be a team we talk about regularly. And they debuted their outdoor season sub 330 with a 329.3. And I think it's right for us to call that out, even though, it's not a time that an Arkansas or a South Carolina would put out. But not every school is Arkansas or South Carolina, and Coach Ross is still building to get to that point. That's a very solid start at the beginning of the season. Get some pretty good competition. 329.3. That is a very strong start to the season. And Tennessee, with their sprinters, that sprint group looks to be pretty strong because even their B team ran a 4.48, and their exchanges weren't even perfect. So with the incoming recruits that are coming for next year at Tennessee, what they have now, Tennessee is going to be one of the big guns in the SEC. Even with the conference getting tougher and more challenging with Texas and Oklahoma moving over, it's still you still can't ignore the depth of talent that's going to be at Tennessee. They've done a great job with recruiting and so far with development. Another really good performance came from an All American, Jasmine Mitchell of Ole Miss. In the shot put, 55 feet, 4 and 3/4 inches, or 16.88 meters, a solid mark to begin her outdoor season. She's kind of been, as of late, in Jelani Davis's shadow. And to be fair, Jelani Davis has been the better thrower. She's been the clog in the engine of that Ole Miss throwing power. She has a national title to her name. She won the way throw, and she almost won the shot put against a very strong field. And I think this is the start of her really kind of reminding people that she was also one of those champions that we can't ignore for a really good throwing program. Another great thrower is Elizabeth Rudd Runersdottir of. I, that name is really tough for me to pronounce, so I'm sorry if I butchered it, but I just want to make sure that I gave her correct credit of Texas State, Elizabeth Rutt Runersdottir. She had a 226 feet 9-inch throw in the hammer, 69 meters, 69.11 meters. Already, she's a sophomore, and I know right now the lists aren't long, but let's give some credit to Texas State. They have the top two hammer throws in the country right now. It will likely not be that way, at the end of the season, but clearly with their throwers, they're heading in a very positive direction, especially if you have a thrower with a mark like that. So hats off to her, a young, talented sophomore. I'm beginning to think maybe we may not hear the end of her. She may not, be mentioned until the end of the season. That's a maybe. But for her to put a markup like that, her first hammer throw of the season, that's a positive sign. I think she's going to be an All American candidate again. So let's keep an eye out for her, especially we're going to have to memorize that last name. And that'll be our third leg. And the anchor leg is what is expected. Um, Again, there will be an outdoor preview set of preview videos this week. And I am not going to mention a whole lot in the realm of the team title discussion. I think it is way too early. And again, we don't know who is going pro. And we don't know what the team makeups are really going to be, probably to about the middle of April. So, I don't want to, ignore the rankings because if you follow my Facebook group, I Love College Track and Field, you'll see that I regularly post when the rankings are out. And I, gets the headline, it catches attention, but it's also to keep everybody's eyes on the sport in a way that says, let's take a look at what this team has. But I really don't think that we have a really good understanding to about mid April. So I think it'll really be a month before we know what everyone has. I think it's fair to have rankings just for, excitement's sake, but I don't think they really tell us a whole lot right now. And then we always get that clear picture come conference championship weekend. And, you know, conference championships are going to be great this year. They're at, in very competitive environments. The SEC is at the University of Florida, the Big Ten is at the University of Michigan. There's going to be some pretty competitive conference championships, and they're going to be very interesting because it's Olympic year. But plus, these are some really great venues to host meets. And I think we're going to have some really good performances come outdoors this year. I really am hopeful for, because I so love Olympic years in this sport because everyone just steps up. I can vividly remember my high school senior year, 2004. Lauren Williams, Muna Lee, Cyan Richards Ross, a sophomore. It just an array of talented runners. Then in 2008, I mean, and I was worried in 2008 because Shalonda Solomon of South Carolina had already turned pro early, but there wasn't an. I mean, you had Kellyanne Baptiste of LSU stepping up and really putting a hammer down in the sprint. She was phenomenal at that meet. And then in 2012 and then 20, it's never ending. It's always a great meet. It's always a great year. So let's have that again. Feedback, whether positive or negative, please give it. I want this to be a spot for us, a space for track and field nerds like myself who love the college version of our sport. So please like, share, and I will talk with you all next time. Thanks again for your support as always.